On this 20th anniversary of 9/11, we remember not only the 2,977 people who died that awful day, but also those whose lives were irreparably changed, the survivors. 17's Robert Price has the story of one such person, Bakersfield's Kathy Ong Herrera, whose journey he's been following for all of these past 20 years.
What is your name?
Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11.
20 years has gone by, and in many ways, it doesn't feel like it.
Kathy Ong is the living embodiment of the courage, resolve, grief, and hope that endures 20 years after one of the most traumatic days in American history. The day 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial passenger jets and used them as missiles against some of the country's most visible and symbolic landmarks. September 11th, 2001.
You still experience the trauma of it every day, but when you think about how long Betty's been gone and how you miss her and all the events that have happened, it has been a long time.
We just left Boston. We're up in the air. We're supposed to go to L.A., and the cockpit's not answering their phone.
Kathy Ong's little sister, her best friend, was aboard the first of those missiles, American Airlines Flight 11. But Betty Ong, an American Airlines flight attendant, was not a passive victim. She was able to connect by phone with an airline reservations agent on the ground, help identify the hijackers, and essentially warn the nation.
And there's somebody stabbed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something.
Kathy Ong, a retired Bakersfield dental hygienist, would rather not be this beacon of remembrance. She would rather have a quiet, ordinary life. But her sister's fate is, in a very real sense, her own. She, along with her brother Harry, are Betty's champions, the ones who keep alive her memory, and by extension, the memory of the near 3,000 others who died on 9/11 and in the days that followed. Betty Ong's recorded conversation with the airline's reservation operations is almost startling in its matter-of-fact clarity.
Can anybody get up to the cockpit? Can anybody get up to the cockpit? I think the guys are up there. They might have found their way up there or something. Nobody can call the cockpit. We can't even get inside.
Betty, who was 45, had determined that 4 hijackers had come from first-class seats, 2A, 2B, 9A, and 9B. A wounded passenger, stabbed but possibly already dead, was in seat 10B, she said. The hijackers hit the cabin with some sort of spray that made everyone's eyes burn, and Betty said she was having trouble breathing. The plane, she said, is flying erratically. The transponder is dead, and oddly, the hijackers have not indicated whether they might have any demands. Now the plane is making a rapid descent, she said. Now people in the cabin can see water and buildings. Now the plane is flying sideways. Sideways. Pray for us, Betty Ong tells the reservations agent.
And that was the first plane that went into North Tower, the World Trade Center in New York City. The 911 Commission, who was investigating the events that day, proclaimed her an American hero because she helped to save many lives.
Since that day, Kathy Ong has given many speeches. One of those times stands out.
One day after my presentation to the children, I was walking across the gym, and I can hear the sound of pitter-patter running across the gym, and a little hand slipped into mine, and I looked, and it was a little girl, and she said to me, she says, "It's okay," she says, "I'll be your little sister," and it just choked me up. Sometimes afterwards, it's kind of like I want to turn the noise down. It just gets too noisy, and so I say, I just want to turn the noise down. So it's not that I don't mean to speak, it's just that it gets a little bit hard, it gets a little bit noisy, and I'm looking for peace and quiet.
Betty's name and character live on through the Betty Ong Foundation, which helps children and seniors, people that Betty especially enjoyed, and through the Betty Ong Recreation Center in San Francisco's Chinatown. She grew up playing there as a child. In 2012, it was renamed in her honor. In most ways, Kern County, like the rest of the nation, is back to its old self. The anger and apprehension are still there. They're just, to a great extent, now directed at fellow Americans who reside on the other side of the country's seemingly growing political and cultural chasm.
I hope that we get our act together and really work things out. I find that, or I'm hoping that people in general have more compassion towards one another because we're so divided today.
In this climate of distrust and acrimony, we would do well to remember the quiet courage of Betty Ong, the selfless dedication of her sister, Kathy Ong Herrera, and the spirit of unity, their shared tragedy, our shared tragedy, once inspired.
Well, in 20 years, I have learned that I guess pain and grief can peacefully coexist with all that brings you joy and all that you can be grateful for and all that deserves to be remembered and loved.
My name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11.
In Bakersfield, Robert Price, 17 News.